Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs with Valor. What we're going to do in this video is to show you how to detail clean your Glock. Let's go ahead and get started. When we do a regular cleaning on our pistol, oftentimes we just take the frame and the slide and the barrel apart, scrub off all the carbon, reapply some lubrication, put the pistol back together. And that's going to work for the majority of the time. When you clean and lube your gun, it's going to be good to go for another 1,000, 2,000 rounds. But sometimes, guys, we shoot enough rounds, we're going to actually have to break the pistol down even farther. We're going to have to break it down into finer components to make sure that we clean out all the internals, like the striker channel, the trigger bar, all of these small little components. It's crucial that we know how to do that because sometimes little things can get in there. And I've seen people have a lot of lint get in the trigger bar. And I knew a guy who froze his trigger bar because there was so much lint in there. I mean, he'd had his pistol for several years, but had never detail cleaned it. So I wouldn't want that to happen to you. I like to detail clean mine about 3 or 4 times a year, depending on the number of rounds you shoot and your climate, of course. So I'm going to take you through it step by step on how to detail clean that Glock and make sure that it's good to go for thousands and thousands of rounds. Okay guys, here's what you're going to need. You'll need a little punch, something small like this, in order to get these little pins out, as well as the trigger pin right back here. I like to use Hoppy's number 9. That's my go-to. There's other cleaners out there that are solid, but this one works the best. For lube, I really like the Slip 2000 EWL or EWL 30. I've had outstanding success with it, and it works in any environment, no matter the temperature. I like some cotton patches, and of course the world famous AP brush. Those of you in the Army or the Marine Corps would definitely know this one. And no, this is not my toothbrush. This is a well-used AP brush from my other things. First thing we got to do before we take the pistol apart is clear it. Remove your magazine, put that away. I like to get it well out of the area, lock the slide to the rear, make sure there's no ammo in there. I always keep my pistols loaded, so I definitely clear it. Send it forward. I always like to check it twice. What I'm looking for is an empty mag well and an empty chamber. That's what we've got. It is clear. Find a direction where there's nobody else around, probably your basement, or if you have one, or if you don't have a basement, against something solid, press the trigger to take the Glock apart. Now, disassemble as normal. Remove your slide, remove your recoil spring, and remove your barrel. Now what we're going to have to, this is the standard disassembly, so most of you that have Glocks have probably done this before, but this is how you break it down even farther than that. Follow this step by step and follow this process and you're going to be just fine. Alright, what I like to start with is the frame. You can see just how dirty mine is. I have not detailed cleaned this or cleaned this in about 1,000 to 2,000 rounds, and this is my range pistol, not my carry pistol. What we're going to start with is the top pin right here, and you can go either left to right or right to left. I found it makes no difference. So push that out just like that. Then what we're going to do is we're going to get this bottom pin, and I'm going to push that bottom pin out. You may have to move your slide stop a little bit in order to disengage that. Put that away. Now what I do is I take my slide stop out, and then what I do is I take this little piece out. We just get the pin underneath there and pry it out just like that. All right, last, what we're going to do is we're going to drive this trigger pin out, and I'm going to drive it out just like this. Drive that out, put that away, and then we pull the entire trigger out just like this. Look, if I'm going too fast for you guys, hit the stop button or maybe even rewind, and then you can hear what I'm saying again. All right, now what we're going to do on the slide right here, what we need to do is you need to take this small little piece right here. You'll see that there are the cups. What we're going to do is we're going to push down on those and then slide the back plate off just like that. Then I take my striker out. Then what I do is take this little guy right back here. We can take that dude out, and I can tell I really need to get the internals clean on this one. That's okay though, it'll come right out just like that. All right, now with the extractor, what you got to do, I just take my thumb and I push in on that little guy right there, and then what I'll do is I'll just pull my extractor out just like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy, and it will come right out as well, and we just pull that guy straight out. So guys, that is your disassembled Glock for detail cleaning it, and that's how I do it. Let's start with the detail cleaning. Get your patches. Like I said, I know everybody's got their own little favorite potion for getting these guns clean. I like Hoppy's 9. I've used it since I was 15 years old. It's never let me down. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure that I'm going to start with the barrel. I always start with the barrel. Wipe that guy down. Make sure you get all the feed ramps on there, because if this gets carboned up and it gets a lot of friction, the rounds will have trouble feeding. So make sure you get those feed ramps. Clean all the face of your barrel just like this, get all that knocked down. Some people like to scrape that off with another tool. You can use you know, a copper brush, or you can use anything like that, and you can get a lot of the stubborn carbon off. So that's what I like to do, and I make sure that this is good and clean, because your barrel is a very important part of this gun. So what I'm doing, guys, is I'm knocking down all this carbon, all these brass filings, as I'm sure that you can see, get underneath the barrel lugs right there. So that's good, and I'm make sure that I'm getting all this in here. Some people like to punch the bore with a bore snake or a cleaning rod. That's fine. I've found that I only do that very sparingly. You can if you need to, but mine, there's nothing in there that's problematic. I don't see anything crazy in there. So make sure you get that barrel knocked down, just like so. Set that down out of the way. Now, take your slide and make sure you get it in there. Get it in on the bottom right there. Clean all that out. As you can see, quite a bit of brass filings. I'm sure you can all see that. Get all that in there. What I really like to do is get the face of this striker channel. This one, you got to really make sure that you get the sides on, okay? You've got to make sure that you get the sides on here, especially right where the extractor was, because there's a lot of carbon buildup in there. And if that builds up enough, what's going to happen is that you'll have problems with your extractor, and it will stop extracting the cases. So if you guys are getting some stovepipes, or you're getting failures to extract, that may be a reason why. So I clean all underneath there. I really want to clean inside here as well, where the extractor is, because that's another area where the carbon really likes to build up, and so make sure we get that. But really get this area right here, right where the back of the case and the primer rest, right by the striker. Make sure you clean that out. What I like to do here is maybe get that AP brush, scrub that out a little bit, just like that. Very simple process. Pull all that stubborn carbon and unburnt powder deposits, get those out of there, and this does a good job with it, and it really makes sure that it's a nice smooth surface. So what I do here also is I get back here towards the rear of the slide as well, and I clean all this out. See all that? I mean, it's got quite a bit of gunk. It's got a lot of case filings. It's almost like a sludge at this point, because like I said, I've shot this quite a few rounds without doing a detail cleaning. All right, I also like to get inside these little rails. When you first buy your Glock, you'll see it's got that anti-seize, that copper looking solution in there that's solid. I like to make sure I get all that out, but this pistol's long past that point. That stuff's been disappeared for years. So what we're doing here is we're getting all inside there. What a lot of guys like to do is take your little brush and pull all that stuff out. Pull all of it, make sure your rails are clean. On the inside, there's no unburnt powder, carbon, or anything else that's been trapped inside there. Make sure you're getting all that. As you can see, it's much more clean, much more acceptable. All right, now what I do here is I'll take my frame, really clean this out, because there's stuff that will accumulate. As you can see right here, this is a lot of caked on carbon, so we're gonna get that. I mean, you can just see it coming off there. Carbon really doesn't stick to my pistol very much, because like I said, I use that Slip 2000 stuff. It tends to knock that off, so I'm gonna have to get a couple more patches and get some hoppies on there. Like I said, guys, I don't care what you use for your solvent. We just want to break up that carbon, that unburnt powder, and get it to come off. People are like, man, I would wear rubber gloves when I was cleaning this. Go ahead and do that. It's kind of part of my essence now. Like Hoppy's 9 is almost like my scent. It is the scent. But anyway, I used to have a buddy in high school, or right after, actually when I was in college. I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and he said, man, every time I come over to your house, man, it always smells like gun oil and spent powder. And I said, well, there's a lot worse things to smell like. At least I'm out there shooting. So Ryan, that one's for you, big guy. I'm sure you're watching that. Hopefully not on duty, man. Hopefully not on duty. But that one's for you. That one's for you, Ryan. He'll know who he is. Anyway, what we're doing, guys, is we're just knocking all this stuff down, and I'm making sure that I'm getting inside that mag well. You really want to make sure you get that out of there, because that's a big violator of sanctity. So get all this cleaned out here. Make sure you're swabbing down anywhere it's gray, all those deposits. I really like to get inside here too, because this is where the trigger pack goes, where all that trigger components are, right in there. Pull all that stuff out of there, guys. And so I get all that, get all them filings out of there, all that unburnt powder, all them little brass filings from all the ammo that I'm shooting in there. It's important that you get in these nooks and crannies. Some guys will use a little AP brush and see if they can brush all that out of there, and that's fine too. So what I'm doing is knocking down all that stuff. I'm getting all the solid deposits in there. Heck, I got a real good buddy of mine down in Texas. He uses carburetor cleaner to knock all that out. Got a buddy, and he's been shooting and training for a long time. He'll just take carburetor cleaner and spray all this stuff out, and it seems to be, it does a good job. But I'm old school. I like to use the Hoppies 9, and that's what I'm doing. So wipe all that out. Now that I've got the big components out of the way, I'll put those up there. What I'm gonna do now, folks, this is your extractor. See all the buildup in there? You can see the buildup underneath. We wanna wipe all that down. Some guys use a bristle brush, a metal bristle brush. That works fantastically. I use the nylon one because generally that'll knock a lot of it out of there, and it'll pull all the gunk out. If you wanna use something sharp like a knife tip or something like that, you can get that out of there just like that, and it'll come right off, as you can see right there. But guys, you want to make sure that you're scraping off where the extractor is, because that's what grabs a hold of the back of the rim of the case. And what that does is that really helps pull the spent shell case out of the chamber. And so you got to make sure that that's clear. If it's carboned up, it ain't going to get as much of a purchase on there. So if you guys are having extracting issues after a while, that may be the culprit. All right, that may be the reason why. So if you polish up your extractor, not polish it, but I mean if you get all that carbon off of there, it'll be fine. So that's good. As you can see the carbon here, I'm just wiping that off, making sure that that's clean. And like I said, you want to be working where it's not going to fall down into any cracks anywhere, or you'll lose these parts forever. And of course this shouldn't be too bad, just wipe that off. So these parts are good. Here I'm going to get this right here, just wipe that off. Carbon just comes right off this thing. It typically doesn't stick to it, but we just need to wipe that off, and that usually works real well. So I'm just wiping off this part here. Some of you probably thinking how these guns will just keep working even if you just keep them lubed up and not so much clean, and that's true. But if I'm carrying a pistol for self-defense, guys, I want to make sure that it's clean and lubricated at all times, because I never know how long that I may have to be dealing with that. If you live in a salty, sweaty environment like Florida or anywhere in the South in the summertime, or you know, if you live in a place where it gets real hot and humid, you guys may want to detail clean your Glock maybe even every month, because sometimes sweat will get down into these fine little cracks and surfaces, right? All right, this trigger pack, as you can see, is absolutely filthy. So I was noticing it was a little bit heavy for me the other day when I was at the range. So just knock all that down. Make sure you're cleaning that out nice and good. Get in here, guys. Get in, pull all that gunk out of there, and it'll be real crisp trigger, real easy to pull, real easy to manipulate once you get this fixed. What I like to do also is get this carbon just like that. You need to go to a different patch. That one's pretty gungy, as the Rhodesians used to say. So we're getting this right here and cleaning off this. Sometimes it's stubborn. I don't get too crazy. Okay. So that's much better. As you can see how well worn in this is, because I always said that the best trigger job for a Glock is a few thousand rounds. Go out to the range, do a lot of dry practice or whatever, and it'll work just fine. So guys, that's how I do it, how I clean all that stuff off. Make sure it's ready to go. So now what we need to do is dry all this stuff off. So take a dry patch, dry off all your stuff. Anywhere that you did the solvent, just wipe it down. Make sure it's dry. That way it doesn't accumulate any unnecessary stuff, even more than it already does. Wipe it down, make sure it's nice and dry. So as you can see, I mean, even when I'm detail cleaning it, I'm not getting too crazy. I mean, I don't spend a lifetime cleaning my guns. I mean, I clean them enough to get them to work again, and don't worry about it, because if they're lubricated, they're probably going to work well. Now what I will do once or twice a year is really do a fine-tooth comb cleaning of it. And when I do that, then I really emphasize getting every ounce of carbon off there. But this isn't one of those times. It's not due for one of those for another month or so. So frame is wiped down clean. That's good. Barrel, I'm going to wipe that down dry as well. So that's good. Make sure you clean underneath those barrel lugs, dry that out. So I'm getting all that. And you can see, guys, I mean, this pistol here, this is no exaggeration. I mean, this pistol that I'm cleaning here probably has about 40,000 rounds through it. And you can see minimal wear because I keep it lubricated pretty well. This gun eats through ammo, and when I shoot it quite a bit. This is the one I shoot in class. In front of people. I shoot this one quite a bit in front of students and for my demos and for my own personal practice. So it has quite a bit of rounds through it, and it's still as accurate as the day that when I got it, and it's more than accurate than you could ever ask for. So what I'm doing here, guys, is making sure that I'm checking my parts also. I'm checking for cracks and worn out springs and things like that. I replace the springs on my Glock probably 2 or 3 times a year. I do a complete spring replacement, make sure it's in ship shape, make sure it works well. Always do preventative maintenance, look for cracks in the slide, look for issues coming up. So the 3 main components are dry. Now let's get the smaller components down. Wipe this off dry. That's good. And you know, when you guys are inspecting your parts, make sure all the springs look the way that they're supposed to. Make sure that you're checking for any bent parts if you can. Sometimes it'll happen, it'll surprise you. I'm looking to make sure everything's good. That one looks fine. Extractor definitely is in a lot better shape than it was when I got a hold of it. Okay, we're checking all that. Definitely the trigger needs to be dry. Make sure you dry all that solvent off that, especially up top here, especially down here where the trigger moves. Okay, got that. So that is dried off. Oh, my striker. I'm gonna make sure, but that doesn't look hardly dirty at all, so I'm not even gonna mess with that. It looks clean, striker channel. And what you can do is look down in that striker channel and make sure that it's clear, make sure it's good. I've looked down there and it looks clean to me. There's no issues, so I'm gonna leave that be. All right, putting it back together. We're gonna do it in the complete reverse way that we did it. So the first thing that goes in is the trigger, okay? What we're gonna do is we're gonna put this trigger in just like that. Take your pin, put the pin in, drive it through, make sure it's all the way in there. That's good, and it's not coming out. Put your piece in just like so. That's good. Now, here's what you need to do, guys. The top pin goes in first. So drive that pin in there just like that. Make sure it's in, center it up, just like that. Take your slide stop. Now, underneath here, you want to make sure that this spring goes underneath that top pin, otherwise it ain't gonna work. So what I'm doing is I'm setting it in there just like this, and I'm pushing that spring in, make sure it's sitting where it normally sits. Right there is where it normally sits. Then we take the second spring, or the second pin, excuse me, drive that in, pull up, let it go, pull up, let it go, pull up, let it go. Okay, it's seated in there just fine. When we put the slide back together, I start with the extractor plunger right here. So put that in, push it all the way down, take your extractor like this. There's a little slot, you can see that it goes right in between, so push it all the way in, drop it in, let it loose. Now what I do, metal to metal. So the metal part goes in first, folks. Metal part goes in first. Then what I do is I put my striker in, just like this, and then I'm gonna put my back plate on. All right, now what you're gonna have to do is you're gonna have to push both of these down and make sure that they are compressed all the way. Push those down, okay? Then push this down. Push that all the way down, and then it will click into place. Check your extractor. There should be tension, just like that, and we're good. So, here's how we're gonna lube this. I like to start with the slide. And what I do is I'll put 1 to 2 drops right in there. And I'm gonna rub that in. Then what I'll do is I'll take my barrel like this, and I'll get underneath the barrel lugs. Right in there. And then what I do is I'll get around the upper third of the barrel. And once you do this, guys, rotate it around like that, just the upper third, set that back in, just like this. Set it back in the frame, okay? And then your recoil spring, the round end goes front, it goes right in just like this. Take your frame, 1 drop on each lug, front and rear. And one of the most important aspects is if you can see where this is moving, right under here, I like to do one drop. Sure it gets on underneath there, good. And then of course you just assemble it as normal. Comes back, pull it back. All right, we're gonna have to function check this now. Go ahead and press trigger, hold it back, rack it, reset it, press it again, rack it again, reset it, lock it back. Send it forward. That's a functional pistol, and what I like to do is wipe it down and make sure there's no slippery stuff, and make sure that all the excess oil is wiped off, just like so. Everything's good. So I talked you through it and made sure all your components were clean, and this pistol is going to be good for another 3,000 or 4,000 rounds, maybe more. Actually, it'll be good for a lot more, but I like to do mine maybe every 3, 4, 5,000 rounds when I detail clean it. So that's all there is to it, folks. Pretty simple, and of course the most important part of it, we got to get it ready. Pistol is ready. All right, guys, that's a step-by-step process how to detail clean your Glock. If you found the information in the video helpful, subscribe to the channel. And if you want to learn how to use that Glock, come on out here to Valor Ridge in one of our pistol classes and we'll square you away. This is Reid Henrichs with Valor Ridge reminding you the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.